Hi, I'm Dan Liebel, a Senior Consultant at Stone Ridge Software. This is the Introduction to Management Reporter on Creating and Generating Reports, Part 1. Now that we've discussed all of the building blocks, such as the row 4 definitions, the column definitions, and the reporting tree definitions, the next step is to build your own report using those building blocks into a report definition. So let's go to report definitions and open up a new report. As in the other areas, you can see the existing report definitions that are already there. But we're going to start from scratch. We'll build a new one. And what we're going to do is we're going to go through each of the tabs on building a report and discuss many of the fields in those. Let's start at the top of the report tab, and you can select a company. So if you have multiple companies, you can select the company that you want to run the report for. Keep in mind that you can change things on the fly as you can save these report definitions. They'll save the information with them, but you can then change them at report runtime if you want to, and we'll cover that when we get to generating a report. We're going to stay with USMF. The detail level relates to what level of drill back ability do you want? Do you want to have drill back ability to them? If you're just running financial statements to hand out, you can leave it at financial. If you want to drill down, depending on, and this also depends on how your row format is situated or formatted. So if it's groups of accounts or a range of accounts, or using the account categories, you may need to select a different level of detail. You may need be able to go down to a different level. If your reports are at the detailed level where you have each row is one account, drilling back into the account isn't going to make any sense because you're already at the account level. So then you may be able to use the account and transaction. We're going to set ours to account and transaction in this situation. The provisional, you can use posted activity only, posted and unposted activity, and unposted activity. It's been very rare that I've seen anything other than posted activity listed on this one, so we'll leave it at that. The next part is revolving around reporting currencies. If you have different reporting currencies that you deal with, we're going to stick with US, or we're just going to leave it the default and leave it unchecked. The next section is related to the report run date. So what period do you want to select this for? Because we have very little demo data, we're going to keep it at December 2012. So as you notice, when I selected the base period and the base year, it gave it a report date of 12/31/2012. And how is that? Because it was looking at the columns, and it also looks at your fiscal calendar, or your fiscal calendar in your general ledger in AX. So it knows what your fiscal calendar, their fiscal years look like there. So by grabbing period 12, my period 12 in 2012 in AX is 12/31/2012. I can also change the default base period by S1. By S-1 is usually the default. So we're going to go back and override that back to our 2012. Next we get to our building blocks. So this is where we'll grab, let's grab the summary income statement that we were looking at earlier, and the rows. And then for the columns, let's also grab the column that we were looking at, the year-to-date with the periodic year-to-date with CBR. And for a tree type, let's grab a reporting tree. Once I select reporting tree, and this is where you, as I mentioned in the reporting tree session, that you can do reporting trees or organizational hierarchies. We're going to stick with the reporting tree, and then once you select reporting tree, then you get a listing of all your reporting trees that you need to select one. Let's go with business units. On the output and distribution tab, there's some more selections with regards to your output and how you want to distribute reports, of course. Give it an output name. This will show up in your report library, which we'll get to in a little bit. So we'll just call ours P&L. Validate the checkbox if you want to view the report when generated. As we go down the path, if there's just somebody that just does generating and they don't look at the reports, you may need to, you could uncheck that box, or if it applies. The output locations, there's the ability to do a single location or multiple locations. With regards to the single, we can choose to look up the report library, and there's a view of the different folders that you can create up. You can add your folders, and we'll get into that a little bit more under distributing. We'll leave that as the default for now, and you can also generate to multiple locations, so maybe you put it into multiple report libraries. The reason being, you might have some different security levels at the different folder levels, so that way you can distribute it to the multiple folders depending on the security. So maybe some users get to see, multiple users get to see a single report, whereas maybe some reports you just want to go into a single location. So that's your options there. We'll leave the we'll just leave the single report location and go to the default library. At the bottom is a options on report options, whether you want to include headers and footers, include format rows, include underscore rows, report duplicate accounts. That might be a feature that you might want to enable if you have a number of rows or accounts on rows that you want to make sure that you flag the ones that are duplicated. And then the Excel and XPS options. If you're exporting into Excel, you may want to choose how you want that formatted when you get it to Excel. There's some options there. And also with XPS. And if you're not familiar with XPS is, that's basically Microsoft PDF version. On the headers and footers tab, this is where you define obviously the header of the report, what you want it to state at the top, like the report name, the company, the date that it's for, and then maybe even a footer of some sort. You can also define an image here. So let's kind of discuss those a little bit. Let's start with the image. You can select an image. So we'll put that on the left side. And for the report name, you can determine, I guess if you want a picture of to step back just a moment, the headers and footers have 3 different sections. So picture them the left, center, and right thirds of the page that you have. So that's where you can define where things are at. And you can also insert auto text for verbiage. So like from the header from, you can give it a company description or name, reporting unit information, report definition, name or description, depending on what you want to show up on the report. Also reporting tree definitions, the recurrency, that sort of thing. And the date and time are your options there. You can play around with it a little bit to kind of see which one you like and what's best. Also, page numbers are options. You can do page 1 of, or page pound of pound if it's a multiple page report, and you can say page 1 of 6, page 2 of 6, etc. You can also import text fields from reporting tree, and then there's some other options there that you can utilize as well. And the same applies to the footers, so you can put whatever you want. You can also double click in a row or just type in what you want. So I've seen a lot of companies will put like confidential only or something along that lines on their reports.